or outside, your pronouns. I've been living in the United States for a few years now, and I do love exploring this country. So please share where you are based right now, so I can tell my husband and my son, let's go visit these amazing people in these amazing places. Welcome to today. Today is a special day for us. My name is Laila Martin Garcia. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I am the Universal Representation Field Manager at the National Partnership for New Americans, also known as MPNA. MPNA is a multi-ethnic, multi-racial national coalition of 60 immigrant and refugee rights organizations with reach across 40 states. Together, we lead local and state organizing campaigns, but we also complement the advocacy with essential legal and educational services rooted in community empowerment. It is an absolute pleasure, as you can see my face, to be with you all today, March 8th, as we celebrate International Women's Day. To give you background about today's event, we're going to be discussing Women's History Month, highlighting the contributions that women make when it comes to advocacy, women's rights, and social justice. Today, we have three outstanding panelists who will also speak on their personal experiences and challenges as refugee and immigrant women, as well as the importance of striving for equality and leadership roles. But before we get started, I would like to share a little bit about our work at We Are All America. We Are All America is a national campaign housed out of the National Partnership for New Americans, where we work to uphold and strengthen our nation's commitment to welcome and protect those seeking freedom, safety, and refuge in the United States. We Are All America organizes people across religious and cultural differences to build inclusive communities where we all belong. Over the past several years, our campaign has led to the emergence of an effective national organizing infrastructure that can mobilize public support for people fleeing violence and persecution, counter nativist forces, and develop more welcoming policies and practices in this area at the federal and state levels. So today we have three inspiring women in our panel today, and I invite you all to stay with us until the very end. If you stay, we have a very beautiful surprise, as we are going to be doing a raffle. So please stay. I'm going to be writing your all names in these little papers. And at the very end, we're going to select three papers with your names, and you're going to receive a book of each of the authors that they are going to be sharing to us today. So without further ado, let's get to know our panelists. Our first panelist today is Drusella. Drusella is the co-author of Leaders with a Heart. A testament to enduring resilience, author Drusella is an international champion for diversity intent on building trust between business and minority communities worldwide. Raised on a farm in Rwanda, Africa, Drusella won a scholarship to the National University of Life and Environmental Sciences in Kyiv, Ukraine. Returning, she became the Director of Agriculture and eventually a member of Parliament, contributing to significant environmental changes, including a land reform system, I like that, including a land reform system finally giving women the right to inherit land. Sadly, her personal safety was in jeopardy. Drusella fled Rwanda without family or resources, bravely beginning a new life in Knoxville, Tennessee, where she is right now. So, Drusella, I did a little bit introduce yourself, but would you like to tell us a little bit more about your story and who you are?
Thank you, Leila. First of all, congratulations to all women in the world and all women who are watching us and listening to us, because we are all here because of one woman who sacrificed all the hours and nights so we can be who we are today. I will supplement on what you said. I am Drusella. I am a board member of the Refugee Congress, which is a non-partisan organization, national organization. We are promoting the well-being of refugees, asylees, asylum seekers, and vulnerable migrants. At the Refugee Congress, we believe that there is no business for us without us. So we have to be around all the tables where decisions are made so we can advocate for our issues. I'm also known as the diversity trust builder, as a professional speaker, coach, and trainer who is building a global movement for business leaders who are championing gender equality and diversity in action. I fled Rwanda in 2009 because of political persecution. I was separated from my children for 2 years, and my youngest daughter was 12 years old. I didn't see my husband for a year, and I'm grateful that America facilitated family reunification. Now I am an engaged community member, I am an author, and also I want to give tribute to all women, wherever they are in the bushes, in secure zones, and they don't even have a right to express themselves or go into the public, or they are treated like second class. I also especially want to pay tribute to Ukrainian women. I remember I counted Kiev as my second city, and my heart is broken when I see it being destroyed. Like all those cities where we come from or other countries, we just hold you space. Maybe you listen or you don't listen to us, but I think people on this stage can expand and extend our message of love, hugs, and kindness. So I can stop there, but I love you, and I am super excited to respond, to communicate, and for this wonderful conversation. Thank you. Back to you, Leila.
Thank you so much, Rosella. Man, we are like 8 minutes in, and I'm already like extremely inspired in here. So let's go to our second speaker of today. She is an amazing woman, and I have the privilege of calling her my colleague and a sister in the struggle, Nada Samich. She's the co-author of Divine Love, and she's the national film manager at We Are All America. Nada is a former refugee who was forced to flee from her home country of Bosnia and Herzegovina. After surviving through a civil war, Nada and her family were granted asylum in the United States as refugees. She has an Air Master's in Public Administration at Western International University. In her current role, she is the National Field Manager of the We Are All America campaign and the Arizona Delegate for the Refugee Congress, where she helps advocate for refugees and asylum seekers. Nada is the co-author of the book Divine Love and sits on various national and local boards. She's most passionate about human rights, and I can test that because everyone deserves the fundamental right to seek safety and refuge. So Nada, same question for you. Share us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Thank you so much, Lila. I am so excited to be here with you all. First of all, I want to acknowledge all of the women around the world. Today is a really special day. And of course, my colleagues on this panel, Drusilla, Dr. Dia, and Lila, and everyone for being here. My name is Nada Sumik, once again. As Lila mentioned, I'm a former refugee, originally from Bosnia and Herzegovina. And my family and I went through that treacherous journey of what a refugee goes through. And due to a civil war and a brutal genocide that happened in my country. And it was a very, very difficult experience. But we all know that refugees, those of us who have gone through that experience, are not victims of what happened to us, but we are resilient and contributing members to our society. And so I went on, I resettled in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, and I went on to get my education here, got my master's degree in public administration, and I am really, really committed and passionate about human rights and advocating around policy and grassroots organizing for refugee and the immigrant community. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me, and I'm going to turn it back to you, Leila.
All right, thank you, Nada. And let's introduce our last speaker for today, Dr. Dia Abdul. She is a second-generation Palestinian refugee born and raised in Jordan. Dr. Abdul's teaching, research, and scholarship focus on Arab women writers and Arab and Islamic feminisms. She has also published poetry, fiction, and creative nonfiction. Her first book, American Refuge, True Stories of the Refugee Experience, was published by Sterforth Press in 2022. In 2015, Dr. Abdo founded Every Campus a Refuge, which advocates for housing refugee families on college and university campus grounds and supporting them in their resettlement. So I'm gonna let her explain a little bit more about herself and introduce herself in her own words, please, Dr. Dia.
Thank you so much, Leila, and it's wonderful to be here with Rosella and Nera. And I would love to echo similarly the admiration I have for women around the world. I was telling Nera and Rosella and Leila that today my kids are off from school, and so we're at the mall. So I'm taking this meeting at the mall. So I want to also uplift all the working mamas out there who are trying to juggle 15,000 things simultaneously. I also want to, as my colleagues have done on this call, really uplift women around the world who are fighting for justice, and especially Indigenous women and Palestinian women. I'm Palestinian myself. Women who are upholding, protecting their lands and their peoples. I, as Leila said, was born and raised in Jordan to Palestinian refugee parents. I grew up on my grandmother's stories of her love and yearning for Palestine, and her experience as an outsider and as a refugee who was really never able to integrate or feel like she belonged, even though she lived for decades in Jordan and died there, having never returned to her country of origin. I came to the US as an immigrant, and while I was teaching here in the United States in North Carolina, in 2015, I heard Pope Francis call on every parish in Europe to host a refugee family. And I was really inspired by that beautiful idea of calling on small communities to do the work of welcoming our new neighbors. It's a community effort. And so I thought and realized that really colleges and universities are such a great place to do that work of welcome and support for integration. And so Every Campus a Refuge, an organization that I founded in 2015, really tries to mobilize colleges and universities around the country to host refugees and support them in their integration and welcome them into their cities as new neighbors and new Americans. It's a pleasure to be here, Leila. I'm gonna turn it back to you.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. I am very thankful to you all to be with us today, to share your stories and experiences with us. Your resiliency, your bravery, your power is truly inspiring. And I would like to ask the same question to the three of you, because you all have published a book, and we would like to get to know you a little bit better through your books, right? As well as your experiences. So I'm gonna start with Neira. Neira, tell us about your book and why you choose to publish.
Thank you, Laila. So my book was actually just published last week on March 3rd. So it's been really an overwhelming process and just going through this experience of a publication. The book is called Divine Love: Uplifting Stories of Radical Self-Acceptance, Truth, and Transformation. And it's an international publication of co-authors. It was an international project. And I'm proud to say that it is already the #1 international selling book on Amazon last week after it published. So that was really exciting to see that. And it just uplifts extraordinary humans that have gone through different experiences in their life and have had transformation in their lives. So my section in the book is called A Memoir of Being a Child of War. And I talk about my lived experience surviving civil war, the impact of that, and the lessons learned. And I want to share a little bit about my lived experience and kind of what the lessons learned from that were. So as I mentioned, there was a civil war in my country, and my family and I were forced to leave in the 90s when the war broke out, simply because it was no longer safe to stay in our home. During that time, my father was taken from us to a concentration camp. by his fellow coworkers, colleagues he knew, came to our door, and took him. And I remember that morning very clearly when someone came and knocked at our door. And it's not because he had committed any kind of crime or done anything wrong, but simply because he carried a Muslim name. And at that point in time, my mother knew that the situation was very dire. It continued to get more and more dangerous, and she had to make the very difficult decision of leaving our home and on all of our belongings and everything behind. And there was one particular moment in our journey where we were we were waiting at a bus station with thousands of people waiting to get out of that situation, similar how we've been seeing the images and videos in Ukraine of people trying to leave when the war broke out. And I remember among those thousands of people, I somehow became separated from my mother. And truly, that moment became a defining moment in my life, which I didn't know. But I recall just frantically crying as a child, looking for her in this crowd. And I was filled with fear and despair. You know, those moments felt like eternity while I was desperately searching for her. And finally, I was able to find her. She was able to find me, and we were, you know, I remember her holding me. But that moment really defined a lot of who I am. And I didn't realize that and recognize that till later in my adult years. And so this experience of going through this experience as a former refugee, it left a resounding impact on me. And I remember growing up academically, I always excelled. I was great at school, but I never felt like I could really fit in with American children. They did not understand what I had gone through, and most children don't understand something as traumatic as that. And so growing up, I recognized that big separation that I experienced from my mom and also from my father being gone. It created a sense of fear of loss and abandonment for me. And I substituted that. I tried to make up for that by trying to do everything for others, by trying to take on as much as I could, to the point where it mentally exhausted me. And so it took a long time for me to heal and go through that journey through my young adulthood. And even now, it's an ongoing reminding myself that it's important to let your experiences from the past and what you've been through, not allow them to define you, but to truly live in the present moment. And oftentimes we allow those past circumstances to create our new identity, and we don't even realize it. And it's like almost like I look at it like I always have this visual of carrying all this furniture, all this luggage on your back, and you're kind of trekking through life, right? With all of this furniture, this old furniture that is no longer serving you a purpose, but you don't know how to get rid of it. And so for me, it was getting rid of this furniture and really reflecting and realizing how it was impacting, how I was impacting the people around me, the present moment, me living in the present moment, and also holding me back from what I really wanted to do in my future, which is a career in activism and organizing work. And so one of the lessons that I always remind myself is like, we can buy many things, we cannot buy time, right? And we all know this. And so I'm very conscientious of that now. And I think it's really important for those of us who have experienced the refugee or immigrant journey, where we've had to start a life in a new country, to remind ourselves to be in the present moment, no matter, and that doesn't take away your experience. and the acknowledgement of it. But we have to, and the painful memories that we have, but we have to find a way to heal and move forward and truly integrate into our new communities and societies. We don't want to miss out on opportunities that come our way because we are stuck in those painful memories and those painful experiences and in that past. Particularly us women, seeking a higher education, career professions, we must continue to push ourselves regardless of where we're at and the circumstances. So I will always do what I can to empower other women and uplift them, to be able to be the best version of themselves. So that's pretty much what my section of the book talks about. It's kind of a summary of it. I'd love for you all to read it and you know, reflect on it as well. And that's all on my end. Back to you, Laila.
Thank you, Nada. It was a moment I was almost choking. You know, as a mom myself, right? It's very easy to picture, right? And I can, but very hard to understand the feelings. I think. So thank you so much for sharing. Really, thank you so much. Dr. Dia, tell us about your book, and why did you publish?
Yes, absolutely. And as you can see, I had a friend do this background for me so that I can share the cover. I wanted to be able to showcase this beautiful artwork on the cover that I'll talk about in a little bit. But to go back, really the book is based on my family's experience as refugees, and then sort of the the secondary trauma, the residual really stress of being a refugee, and the children of refugees in Jordan, and then the experiences of several refugees who came to North Carolina and were hosted on Guilford College's campus when they first resettled here. So the book contains the stories of my mother, my grandmother, and 6 individuals who participated in the Every Campus a Refuge program at Guilford College. Their names are Sabha Al-Atiyah, that's my grandmother, the woman who raised me, my mother, Afaf Abdo, Ali Al-Khazraji and Marwa Azaji, 2 wonderful people from Iraq, Blaise Pascal from Burundi, Cheptoek Joram from Uganda, and Sabah Bakar or Fehmi from Syria. So you can see it's really a breadth and depth of the refugee experience here in this country. I want to point out Ali's artwork. So Ali was a refugee that we hosted on Guilford College's campus. Ali is an artist and a calligraphist, and he was a calligraphist in Iraq and owned his own printing shop and worked very briefly for an American company. And so he was targeted with, he marginally escaped 2 assassination attempts. One was a bomb, and another he was shot at, and was able to come here with his wife and his children. And we are very close friends now. He was hosted on Guilford's campus for several months, and we became very close with them. And when I asked him for a piece of artwork to include on my cover, we came up with this wonderful image. And of course, I'm sure you can recognize it as Lady Liberty. And if you know Arabic, then you'll know that the word that's in the middle there is laji, which is refugee in Arabic. And I love this image for many reasons. First of all, it's created by Ali. And it's really wonderful, showcasing the beautiful artwork of his artwork and the beautiful things that refugees bring to our country, all of the skills and the talents and the enrichment that they bring. But I really love this particular image because for me, it's really kind of the tension in the refugee experience. There's Lady Liberty that for me represents the promise and the premise of America, right? Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. We are ostensibly a country of welcome, of reception, of hospitality. But the refugee experience is often hidden. It's invisible. If you don't know that that word says refugee, you'll never guess. You'll think it's part of her dress. So there's a way in which the refugee experience has really been maligned, mythologized. It's become mysterious. And really, this book is a way to open up, to unearth to explain so many things that we think are mysterious about the refugee experience. So I want to say that a lot of these people, all the people who are in the book, I know their stories very intimately. I know my mother very well, obviously my grandmother, all of the folks whose stories are represented here. I knew them, I worked with them, I was part of their integration experience. And I knew these stories because they told me these stories personally, but I did not want to publish their stories without their consent, obviously. So there's a really very clear ethical requirement here when we're dealing with stories that are shared with us in private, that those are not our stories to share unless we are asked to share them or we're given permission. So I officially interviewed all of the people whose stories end up in the book. They wanted to share their stories, and they shared their stories in the way that they wanted to share them, right? And that was really such an interesting experience for me, Leila. When I conducted the interviews, Blaze would say to me, or Chaps would say to me, now, Dia, I know you know this, but you can't say it in your book. And so it was really an illustrative moment for me that we are told things that are sacred and that are secret. And those things should be kept sacred and secret, right? And when we share stories, and sharing stories is so important, it's so powerful. It's really one of the ways in which we can combat significant stereotyping, right? Is tell stories, tell personal stories, tell them often. But it's really important to do that in ways that uplift and uphold the agency and the dignity and the privacy of the people whose stories we're sharing. And so I even officially interviewed my mother. My grandmother, as you know, had passed away. And so in the book, you can actually, I tried to capture as much as possible the style, the cadence, the narrative, the idiomatic expressions of the people I was interviewing. I conducted the interviews in Arabic, which is my native language, with several people who speak Arabic, and then in English. And I really tried to capture the way they said things and how they describe things and how they describe their experience. So hopefully you hear their voices and their lyricism in the book. I wrote the book, I was actually approached by a publisher to write this book, which is wonderful. But I really wanted to write this book for a few reasons. First of all, as a teacher who teaches refugee issues, it was really hard for me to find books that captured the broad spectrum of people who are seeking safety and security. So we often read narratives about people when they become refugees, or maybe after they've resettled, or their pain during the flight or life in a refugee camp. But we never meet them before necessarily they become refugees, like who they are, living in countries they loved, with people they love, in homes they love. So I really wanted to write a book that captured the breadth and depth of that experience, the life before, the moment of rupture, the flight to the country next door, the life as in a refugee camp, coming to the United States, that journey, the first few days of resettlement, and then 5-6 years after resettlement, what does it look like? And I really wanted to capture that in individualized ways, because there are as many stories as there are people who are refugees, right? They're all individual experiences, but they have certain commonalities and certain similarities. So I wanted to capture the individuality without eliding the really important commonalities that people have. Another reason I wanted to write the book is because there are really big damaging myths about refugees in our current narratives and discourses. For example, that refugees, quote, leave shithole countries, or that refugees receive a lot of resources when they get here, or that refugees should be happy in resettlement, right? Like, why aren't you happy? You should be grateful that you're here and that you're resettled. Or that refugees resettle. In fact, 99% of refugees never resettle. Less than 1% of refugees resettle. So I really wanted to bust those myths, but I wanted to bust those myths using stories and narratives rather than sort of facts, which we hear all the time, but they don't necessarily break through. They don't come through into our consciousness. So I wanted to make sure that really I told the stories of people I love so that we can help an entire population. And I'll turn it back to you, Leila.
Thank you so much. I think the last sentence is very, very powerful to me. It does resonate a lot. So yes, same question to you, Drusella. Tell us about your book and why did you decide to publish? Drusella, I think we need to, perfect.
I will tell you about my book in a second, but I wanted to, first of all, let you know also that I am an advisor to the Community Sponsorship Hub. You know that through the Welcome America, now we are looking for 10,000 Americans to welcome extra 5,000 refugees through the community and private sponsorship. And we want multicultural community you belong to and other friends you know to participate fully in this program. Because the refugee program doesn't welcome many. And you know, when you delay in your system, you start from scratch. While we had a crisis from Ukraine and Afghanistan, like other countries delayed. So now America want to catch up through that program. I invite you personally through your communities to not miss this opportunity. So my book is, title is Leaders with a Heart. And I commend you for being great leaders yourself. How this idea came. Actually, I wanted to write a book immediately after being a refugee. But my gut told me that if I do, I'll just be an angry refugee who can not express what is in my heart. And then second time, I had a motivational speaker, Lisa Nichols, talking about us having a book in our belly. If you didn't write one, you have a book in your belly today, and get it out from that belly. Third, I met a guy from Canada who has parents from Afghanistan, who has a podcast, Leaders with a Heart. Somebody from Australia recommended him to interview me. And then he interviewed me, we talked, he speaks French and I speak French, and we started to talk. And he said, actually, I want to publish the first volume of my book. Would you be willing to participate? I said, yes. And then I was asking myself, yes, you want me to share the story? Where will I start, where I begin? So the chapter in the book is, I am no longer a victim. I'm a creator. Imagine surviving genocide against Tutsi in 1994 in Rwanda. I went to Congo, went back to Rwanda, wanted to contribute to country rehabilitation. And then I lost everything. And then in 2008, I lost everything again, had to flee second time. I never thought about that. So the objectives of writing a chapter in this book were to educate people. Because when people hear that you are from Rwanda, they think immediately about genocide. But there are many stories about how people lived that time. And I wanted to educate people about that and to give them clarity about different stories also. Second objective was to educate about the refugee journey and our contributions to the new homes, our new countries. I wanted also to give a message to refugees to just not be afraid of or being held by the resentment of the things we went through. Wars, violence, domestic violence, persecution based on race, religion, political opinion. Because if you don't let it go, probably you know the person who persecuted you. Maybe you know the leaders who were there, and you are angry against any situation that made you flee. I want to say, I forgive the people, because some people, I cannot talk to them. Some are deceased. But for me to be free and to move forward, I had to let it go. I had to let people know that I forgive them. And if you are still struggling with forgiveness, because that benefits you, I invite you to write down all the names and the circumstances that made you mad or that are holding you back. And then say this sentence: Drusilla, I forgive you because you betrayed me. And you can go on and go on. If it's a leader, you do the same. So one thing I want to finish the reason also I like the book, I shared my story. I went to college in Ukraine, and I remember March 8th was the best day we were celebrating International Women's Day. It was my first time to open up a bottle of champagne to celebrate women. So I did write the experience I had in that beautiful country. And I'm just sometimes I ask myself, is my teachers are still alive? Is my roommate who taught me Russian is still alive? So in that chapter, but also I have recommendation for decision makers, for politicians, to refugees, welcoming community, because I want us to keep enlightening people and to educate and to appreciate. And that is the content of my book. Again, if you go to Amazon, there is this book, Leaders with a Heart, and you can read and give us a review. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. So we've passed the half mark of our panel today. And before I open it to our audience and everyone that is listening today with us, I would like to ask you, one quick question, because I was thinking, like, I am just so inspired by you all and your stories, and how you're devoting your energy and yourself to this. So can you tell us what other women inspire you? I can tell you already. I know that you all, like you three powerful women, inspire me. But tell us, other women that have inspired you right now. Let's start with Dr. Dia, and then we can pass it to Dracela and finally Neida. So Dr. Dia, what other women inspire you?
It's my favorite question because it allows me to talk about my grandmother. So my grandmother is certainly the woman who inspired me. She was married very young. She was completely illiterate, was not allowed to go to school. I remember my brother and I, when she was in her 60s, teaching her how to write people's names and their phone numbers in her little phone book so she could dial people's numbers. But she was the smartest woman I ever know. And I imagine if she was allowed to have an education, I think she would have just been a celebrity or famous or done something. I mean, she did a lot, but I think had she had the opportunity to get an education, I think she would have done such incredible things. But what she did was, when she came as a refugee, she had 2 teenage kids. She was divorced. She walked across the River Jordan with her 2 children and lived in a refugee camp. And she knit loofahs to make ends meet. And some days they didn't have enough to eat. But she persevered, made sure both of her children got an education. And 2 of her grandchildren have PhDs. I'm sure she's so proud of us wherever she is, wherever her soul is right now. She's incredibly proud of us. And I know that I am who I am because of her strength. I really appreciate the strength of all women, but I think women refugees and Palestinian women refugees, there's something really special about my grandmother and her persistence and her power and her strength that continue to inspire me and certainly inspire the ways in which I raise my own daughters.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Neida, what other women inspire you?
So I have to say my mother, she is the most resilient, most powerful, most fearless woman I know. And I don't want to say this bad word, but I'm just going to say it. She's a badass. She is just incredible. And, how she has worked so hard with so little, and such difficult journeys that have been and experiences thrown at her, just from the bravery of having to go through protecting me and the measures she had to take during our journey, to coming here to a new country. And my mother was a hairstylist by trade, and she found a lucrative way to utilize that to help us survive during the war, and so and then coming here in a new country with 2 small children and making everything work, being a housewife, a full-time employee, raising children, being, everything that it takes. I am just mesmerized at how she could do that now that I'm a mother myself. And so I definitely dedicate my book to her and honor her. And I am just always amazed by and inspired by my mom.
So beautiful. Rosella, tell us, what other women inspire you?
The first one is my mother. She gave me Christian values I lead with, including faith. Not having just faith in myself, but believing in other people and inspiring them. She used to tell us to treat people, our guests, like as if they are in an emergency room. So this is how I treat people. I try to respect people and see that I can provide to their needs. And also she did tell me that you have to be kind because you meet kindness ahead. The second person who inspired me is my daughter, the one who was 12 years old. When she came here, when I had a chance to be reunited with her, she said, I said, I'm sorry, I feel like I abandoned you. And she said, no, mommy, you did the right thing. And when she was little, I remember she was, I think, 3 years old. I missed where my cell phone was. And she's the one who told me, mommy, why don't you call it? And I was just saying, oh gosh, how can I think about this? Another lady who inspires me is Michelle Obama. You know, as refugees, we are going through this myth and misconception, people telling us that we are terrorists, we are coming to take, we are, you know, when she says, when people go low, we go up, we go high. So I think this is, and then the last person I remember who inspired me is Professor Wangai Matai. She used to be a Minister of Environment. You know that I was a Minister of Environment, and I do believe in sustainability in the life of current and future generations. And then when cremation is not a common tradition in Africa, but she said when she passes, so they can cremate her, so to save trees. You know, now we are talking about climate change. I think you are experiencing here and there, but she did inspire me, and we did plant some trees together when I went to her country, and I visited Kenya, and in many conferences we met together. So, and of course, I am inspired by many leaders in this space of refugees and immigrants who are working tirelessly and leaving behind their families and other things and transforming, making transformation in the new welcoming communities. So I can stop here, but yeah. And you see, do you feel energy in this room? The audience, put number 1 in the chat if you are inspired, if you feel like you are energized like we are. Thank you.
I am. I'm like, you know, I'm like fire up right now. Yes. I'm so ready. Oh my God. All right. So now it's time for you all. You know, we have a few more minutes to ask some questions. So please, if you would like to ask a question, you can write it in the chat, or I believe you can ask permission, and then our host will unmute you so you can ask your question with your own voice. So please, we have a few minutes. Feel free to ask any question that you may have for these amazing women, maybe sharing, you know, how you're feeling. The floor is open to any of you. Right. I don't hear anything, but please, if you do, unmute yourself or ask for permission so you can be unmuted, or, you know, put it in the chat and I'll make sure that I read it out loud for our panelists. All right, so I think let's ask 2 quick questions, you know, while we wait for the audience to ask any of them, if any. One is, how can people support you and how can they get in touch with you? I was seeing the chat and I was seeing on fire, like, I want to know the name of the book. How can I find it in Amazon? So, you know, how can people get in touch with you? How can people support you? Please tell us, because I think we are all ready. So maybe let's start with Graciela, and then we go to Dr. Dia, and finally Neida.
Yes, the name of the book is Leaders with a Heart, and you can find it on Amazon. And if you don't find the link, please email me at drosela@drosela.com, drosela@drosela.com. How people can support me. I am a speaker, coach, and trainer, and I teach about diversity, but also I have a program to empower immigrants and refugees. I know people are suffering from not being able to network, not being confident, and I want to work together. I know I'm also providing a training with TELS on different topics, including public speaking and trainer of trainers. So I just want you, if you have referrals, people looking for speakers, my program is Diversity in Action. And one of my topics is also leveraging diversity languages. You know, language diversity is crucial, and you know that, and it is not enough in our communities. I want to teach businesses how to leverage business language diversity so they can be more efficient, profitable, reputable, and they can increase their revenues. Second thing you can do is just loving. I hope that you are on LinkedIn, and sometimes you can comment and read what we do, because it does increase our visibility and credibility. So this is how you can, of course, when you read this book, please give us a review. And I want to tell you that if you are afraid to write a book, you can write a small one. Just start with the bullet points, anything you want to start to think. And we can share the resources, cheap resources that can help you to be a publisher. Do not be afraid. And we want to publish as many books as we can, because you want to be a celebrity, and we have the message the world needs to hear. So this is how people can support me. Either you can also your organization, if you have training opportunities. I am a consultant now after 6 years of being executive director for a nonprofit in refugee resettlement. So I'm confident that I can support your organization and many others, you know. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. We have one question in the chat. I'm going to be reading it out loud shortly, but first, Dr. Dia, how can we support you?
Thank you. Yes, well, to echo Drosela, please do buy the book and review it. The book has been assigned at colleges and universities as supplemental reading in courses that focus on forced migration. If you happen to assign the book, I generally zoom in and speak with your students, so I'm happy to do that. If you are on this call and connected to a college or university, we'd love to get your college or university involved in hosting refugees, offering temporary housing and integration support by leveraging campus resources. So please reach out to me. I'm going to put my email in the chat. And we typically, do trainings, workshops that are all free and open access to colleges and universities who are interested in this. I'm going to put the website where you can find a lot more information about every campus of refuge. Please connect us to your college or university. We'd love to talk to them about this program.
Awesome, awesome. And I know you're gonna come to Pennsylvania. I live in Pennsylvania. You're gonna come to Pennsylvania soon, right?
Yes, I'm gonna be in Lancaster. I'm gonna be keynoting the FEND conference at Swarthmore in Philly, and then giving a talk at Franklin and Marshall.
Awesome, that's great. Maybe I catch you in there. Maybe I go to Franklin and Marshall. It's like 30 minutes away. All right, and Neida, tell us, how can we support you?
Of course, supporting me by buying the book, Divine Love, which is available on Amazon, Kindle, and also paper book. This is my contact information, Neida@partnershipfornewamericans.org. The other way is to engage in our work with the We're All America campaign. We work directly in doing advocacy and policy and grassroots organizing, and we really focus on individuals with lived experience, refugees, asylum seekers, and immigrants of other statuses. So engage in our work. We are all us.org. We have leadership development workshops. We have our upcoming national advocacy days and many more ways to get involved. So we'll put the link to our website as well. And yes, thank you for having me.
Awesome. So before we go to the raffle and we close, we do have a question in the chat. I'm going to read it out loud, and I think any of you can feel free to answer this question. It says, what advice do you have for recent refugees arriving in the US? How to find community, and how can individuals support refugees? Any of you feel free to or all of you, chime in.
That is a good question. When I came as a refugee, yes, they gave me food, shelter, but what I was missing was community. And the 3 pillars of refugee integration really are learning English, you have to learn the language, employment, and community engagement. So when you are not engaged in the community, don't expect that you can resettle. So the first thing I would recommend to people is to see, when you talk to a case manager or a welcoming community, tell them your aspirations. Do not wait to tell them what you want, because sometimes you can go through same multicultural groups, but also people have to be very careful, because some people, because of ethnic divisions and other conflict we have been go through in our country, people do not want to associate with the people from their countries. So respecting boundaries is that you have to tell people who are welcoming me, I need a community. It's your right to have a community. And the case managers have to make sure that they connect you or the welcome community. It can be the churches. Also, go to the library, get a library card, and make a connection every day, wherever you go. Learn your story, master your story. Don't be afraid to tell your story, because your story will open up doors to strangers, queens, and kings. And we as leaders in the field, feel free to reach out. I know we are short of time, but I will tell you, learn English. And if you go to English classes, make that community. Churches, synagogues, mosques, any community group you want to belong to, you can. And then one thing I want to tell you, I wish I could have known, Toastmasters. The first day somebody comes in, let them find Toastmasters Club, because they teach you English. There are people who care, and also surround yourself with positive people. If people will pull you down, just go away from those people. Being your community member or somebody, but search for anyone. And then how the community can. So the resettlement agencies are there, but there are other groups in the community who have to be educated, who are also and attend events and volunteer. People have to notice you, have to be visible so people can support and help you. These are my advices.
I really feel that we need community. I really felt that because I arrived to this country 6 years ago, and I needed that. I needed to belong here, to feel like I belong here, right? I don't know, Neira, Dr. Dia, would you like to add anything to this question?
I would just add, for those who recently arrived, don't allow the constraints of the resettlement process and integration process when you arrive here hinder you and hold you back from what you really want to achieve in the future. Because oftentimes we get so overwhelmed, and this is a natural process of integration. There's so much happening. You're acclimating to a new society, you're learning a new language, so much is happening. Oftentimes, I've seen so many refugee communities, my own community, get stuck, in this space of not knowing how to get out of that and move forward, and learning also your rights. For example, labor rights. So you are not stuck in a factory or in a job that is using you, and because you're a refugee or immigrant, they don't allow you to flourish and grow as an individual and as in a professional capacity. So speak up, do your research, and don't hold yourself back because of those constraints of integration.
Awesome.
Yeah, yes, I think Drusilla Adera covered it really well. I would also say, only because I think universities and colleges are such unique, enriching and rich ecosystems of support. Reach out to your colleges and universities. They're incredibly diverse ecosystems on colleges and universities. Students come from everywhere. They speak a lot of languages, different languages. Faculty typically come from everywhere, and they hold really interesting events. One of the things that really supports integration is connecting with communities different from your own. Right, so there are ways to connect with communities that are similar, whether it's through your faith-based communities or community-based organizations, or even in your neighborhood, but also try reaching out and connecting across ethnic, racial, religious lines. I think that really develops kind of a diversity that we all love about this country.
That's right.
One quick thing I want to say. Find a friend, and Dr. Diaz just said, find a friend who doesn't speak your language. This is how you learn the language. And people will say, oh, it's difficult. No, you are equipped to learn the language. And the superpower you believe in, who brought you here, they know, the superpower knows that you can do it. So find a friend. Sometimes people will say, who is your emergency contact? Let them know the case manager be your emergency contact. It will be a friend in your community, and you can have many those emergency contacts. So this is what I wanted to say, because finding friends, you would call friends, they can watch your children when you are not there. They can pick them up when you are not there. They can come to you when you are sick. They can, help you with any situation when you need them. So find a friend.
All right. Okay. So I wrote everybody's names in small pieces of paper here in my desk. So all these have your names. So we're going to do the most rustic raffle that you've ever seen. I'm just going to throw these papers to the air, and hopefully I'm going to catch 3. And those 3 names are going to receive one of the books of these authors. So I hope you are ready. I wish I had a drum roll or something like that. Let's see how it goes. Okay, I got you. Okay, I got you. Let me throw it again very quickly. Oh my God. All right, I got it. Let's see. We have one of the winners is Ashley Loper Nowak. Sorry, I wrote the names very, very quickly, so I'm struggling to read my own writing. But Ashley, you're one of the winners, and I think Dr. Dia knows you because she got very, very happy. Then we have Megna. And the third winner is Lucy Nguyen. So I hope I pronounced these things decently okay, so you recognize your own name. If I haven't, I do apologize, because my handwriting and my difficulty to pronounce things that are not Spanish make it very hard for me. But you all won this book, so we'll be in contact with you to send you one of the books. Congratulations, you are in luck today. And we have 1 minute. 1 minute we have. Can you please, can I ask you to say one sentence each about what message do you want to deliver to the world? And we're going to close with that. Neida, you go first.
Well, I would just quickly close by saying, while we commemorate today, the special day of International Women's Day, I would just say a message of, let's not forget that there are still thousands of women, across the world, particularly in places like Iran and Afghanistan and Ukraine, facing violence and oppression. So let's continue to root for them and hold them in our hearts as much as we can. Thank you.
Beautiful. Drusilla, one sentence. What do you want to say to the world? What's your message?
Women, you are invisible. Go out and be visible. We are tired of these wars and conflicts. Run for an office. And if you have fear for that, we will train you. Imagine 50% of the population, the whole world population. Imagine if you have equal opportunity, equal voice around the tables, what difference we can make. Go, run for office and be visible. Thank you.
I love it. Dr. Dia, what's your message to the world?
I would say never underestimate the power of a simple solution to a seemingly complex problem, and never underestimate your power to receive something by just asking for it. And in fact, this is the advice I give everybody, is just ask for the things that you need and the things that you want, and advocate for others to ask for the things that they want.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today, for giving us an hour of your time. Thank you to our 3 panelists for sharing their stories, their energy, their spirit with all of us. Let's remember that as we celebrate International Women's Day, we honor the legacy of these brave women and other many around us, and reaffirm our commitment to the ongoing struggle for gender equality. We stand in solidarity with women everywhere, and we pledge to continue working tirelessly to build a more just and equitable world for all. We know there is much work to be done to continue the fight for a more just and equal world, but in the meantime, may we continue to sprout, to grow, and to nourish each other today and every day. Thank you all very much.
Yay.